Welcome everyone. I'm Karen. If you haven't met me before, I'm Karen. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 tips to improve your workflow in your shop. So first we want to make sure that we have a good vibrational flow, right? And we want to align ourselves with our authentic mind, our authentic self, because if you really don't believe in what you're doing, you're not happy doing what you're doing, it's hard to get a rhythm, to get a really nice flow in your shop, because you're always going to be thinking about, this is so much work. I really don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be sitting at the machine. I don't want to be taking care of customers. I don't like this type of work. And for that reason, you're not in alignment with your true authentic self of what you should be doing for a job, right? So you want to make sure that you are, that you love what you do. You have always, wanted to do what you're doing. If not, and you've just like learned that trade through family, or you've learned that trade just maybe even in school, or maybe, but now that you're an adult, it's like you really don't want to be doing it, right? So you have to find what works for you. So if you're running a tailor shop, alteration shop, and you're not happy with what you're doing, maybe there's another version of that you would be happy with. Maybe you want to design, maybe you want to do dresses, maybe you want to do something totally different. Maybe you want to make and sell things, Maybe there's some other creative side that is not totally in alignment with what you're doing on a daily basis, and you want to bring that back into alignment. So you really need to focus on what it is you're doing and try to figure out why you're not happy doing what you're doing, right? Now, for me, I've always wanted to do alterations. I've always wanted to go to school for alterations, to learn alterations. I always wanted to, to deal with the customers, to sew, to create, a well-tailored suit, That's just part of me. That's what I've always wanted to do. And so, when I was younger, I always sewed at home. My parents bought us a little sewing machine, and we started sewing at home when we were very young. We started sewing and making and doing crafts and making dresses. And then when I got in high school, I took sewing classes, and then I took advanced sewing classes, and I always made and sewed my own clothes to go to school. My dad used to tell me, I said, Dad, every year when school would start, I would say to my dad, I said, Dad, are you going to give Mom some money so we can go shopping and we can get school clothes? And he said, no. He said, I'll buy you your shoes. He said, and I'll buy you all the fabric you want, patterns and fabric that you want. I'll buy you all of that, whatever you want. Thread, everything that goes along with making it. He said, but I'm not going to spend money on buying clothes. I want you to design and you make your own stuff. So I had to create my own wardrobe, and I would go to high school, especially my senior year, because I think in my junior years when I took the 2-hour sewing class, an advanced class, and I think in my senior year is when I would create an outfit on the weekend, and every time I went back to school on the Monday, I always had a new outfit to wear, so I was always creating and making these trendy outfits. And my classmates, they're like, oh my gosh, how do you keep getting all of these outfits all the time and stuff? And I said, I'm making and creating them myself. And it was, all this hip stuff, that was in style back then, I can remember one time I made this pair of white linen pants. They weren't really linen. They were more like a washable canvas, like a canvas type thick material, woven material. And I made these white baggy pants. They were kind of like a little bit on the short side, not really a capri, but like hit you like right at the ankle. And they kind of were like a baggy leg. It went down. And oh my gosh, I love these pants. So I wore them for a while too. I just pretty much wore them out, right? And I kept bleaching them. And finally I said, you know what? I'm going to do something really creative with these. So I got these these crayons that were fabric crayons, Crayola crayons or whatever they were, for fabric. And I wrote different things, and I drew flowers, and I drew all kinds of hearts and different things on these pants. And the people at school just loved them. They're like, oh my gosh, you know. But they were really, really cool. And I wore them probably for like a year off and on. And then I was getting rid of some things. And my niece was young, you know, and she's like, can I go through some of the things that you're giving away? Mom said you're giving away some things. And she pulled out them pants and she said, I've always loved these pants. I'm wearing these, you know. But it was just a little bit of a story of, you know. But anyway, so I've been sewing for a very long time. And then I live in Indiana. I moved to Nebraska when I was probably about 22-ish, 21, 22, somewhere in there. And I went there, and we didn't have a home. I was homeless. We lived in our car. Our car caught on fire. We had one of these BMWs, and the battery was underneath the seat. And we stopped at this McDonald's to get something to eat, and the car started inflaming underneath it. Something arced it or whatever the heck happens. And it started on fire. Luckily, when we came out, this guy next to us that was parked next to us had a fire extinguisher. He took it, he put the fire out. He helped us go get a new battery, because moving to a new place, you don't know anybody, right? You don't know anybody. You don't know who to trust. It's really scary in a way, but it wasn't so much back then. We camped all the way down, all the way to Nebraska. And but in Lincoln, Nebraska is where I learned my trade from a third-generation tailor. I worked in this high-end clothing company, and they had a large tailor shop inside there. And we had 13 people that worked inside there. We had a men's section that did all the suits and pants and the pressing. And then we had a little bridal portion too, right? So my job was to always, I was one of the fastest ones in the shop, you know, learning the trade and everything. And each person had their own particular job. You know, one person worked on waist, one person worked on pockets, one person worked on hemming, you know, one or two people worked on sleeves, you know. And things like that, and on the jacket work, you know. But the tailor really took a liking to me. He was an way older guy from Denmark. And, you know, he was the third generation of, you know, tailoring in his family. And he took a liking to me, and he taught me everything. So he taught me how to, you know, raise backs and, you know, shorten collars and all this different stuff, you know, that most people in that tailor shop didn't learn at all. You know, they only just came there and did their specific tasks, their specific jobs. And so anyway, and then he would move me around to where we needed the work to flow. So he'd move me, say like the sleeves were really short, you know, people were slowing down or there was bogged up, there's too many sleeves or whatever. And then he would move me to that area to kind of push the work through. Then he'd move me over to pants. If there's an excess amount of, you know, pant hemming that needed to be done, then he'd put me over there, or he'd put me on collar work. Sometimes he'd put me off into the bridal shop if she was bogged down in the summertime or whatever. And there was one lady that usually took care of that, and he put me in there. And then he taught me how to do fittings. And then the lady in the bridal shop took vacation, and he would put me in her place to go out and do the wedding you know, fittings and different things like that. So I got to learn all aspects of the tailor shop. You know, that's what really helped me to be able to move back home. We moved back home after I worked there probably about 6.5 years until I had my first son out there. And then we moved back home, and because our parents were getting older and they needed help and different things. So we moved back home, and you know, it just kind of went from there, you know. And then I was living in an apartment at the time, just moving back here with my young son and my husband at the time, you know, my first husband at the time. And I was taking alterations in out of that apartment, but I was getting so busy, and there was so many people showing up. My landlord came and knocked on the door. He said, hey, he said, I don't know what's going on here. He said, but you just have too much traffic. You can't be doing what you're doing. I said, well, come on in, come on in. I said, I showed him my machines and stuff, and I said, this is what's going on. I said, I've been sewing and doing alterations for people. I have a little ad in the paper, and it's brought in more than I anticipated. I had still trying to watch my son and trying to do this at the same time. It was a little bit trying when you got a baby, And, but anyway, I did it, and he said, well, you can't do that here any longer. I said, okay, I'll find another place to go, or I'll find out something else that will work for me. So I did. One of my best friends, she said to me, she said, I work at this, office space, and I heard through the grapevine that they didn't like the alteration people that they had doing alterations at this certain place. And she said, why don't you talk to somebody and see if you could get the job of doing alterations? So she gave me the phone number and everything, and I called, and I said, who I was and how I have experience in alterations, and that I would like to do work for them and all that. And he said, oh, well, why don't you come in and we'll do an interview and stuff. And I said, okay. So I went for my interview, and I had on this cute little red dress. I never wear red, hardly ever, but I had on this red dress, and I went in there, and I thought I was just going to be meeting with this one guy, and there was like 6, 7 other guys in there sitting at this big, huge table. And I'm just this young gal, just trying to get a job, And so anyway, it all worked out. And they're like, can you start like soon? You have to go to Indianapolis and hurry up and get your tax ID number. And you'll have to get, all this stuff. And, and so I said, sure. So they kind of hired me a little bit on the spot, telling me what all I needed to do and everything and that. And so I went to Indianapolis, got my tax ID number in that day. And otherwise you'd have to wait a certain amount of time to receive it in the mail. So you sometimes have to do that. But anyway, it was just a wonderful experience. And I didn't realize how much I love the trade. Well, I've always realized I love the trade, but I've been not away from the trade, but I've been really slowing down on that type of work because I've been coaching more. So anyway, I went to the bank, and I was talking to the banker, and and he's talking to me, and I'm talking to him, and about financial advice and different things like that. And I said to him, he says, so what did you do before you're doing the coaching and, and stuff? And I said, I've done alterations. I ran alteration shops. I had 3 alteration shops, 7 employees, and I love my trade. And I got teary-eyed talking about it. I was like, oh my gosh, that is truly such a deep-seated root in me, you know what I mean? That's something that's so authentic to me that I didn't think about just talking to somebody about my trade and what I've always done, that I would feel that way. And it was like really gave me an understanding of how deep that goes. Once you really love your trade and you really are ingrained with it, you know what I mean? You've done it for years, you're so ingrained with it, it almost becomes who you are in a sense, you know what I mean? You sometimes, of course, you have to remove yourself, but whatever your job isn't who you are, but I mean, I'm just saying in reference to, you just feel so into it that it really has an effect on you. And that's what I'm talking about, helping you to be better positioned, I guess, in a way to know your authentic self. If you feel that way, if you really have the passion for it to move your shop forward, and it really comes from within. It really does. So anyway, I'm going to give you these 5 tips that I promised you to improve the workflow in your shop. So one is to organize systems and utilize storage spaces. So that means like maybe you have little boxes that you put certain things in, or plastic bins that you keep things, pants and different things organized. You put things on hangers and you file them in a system, or different closets you use for your systems or whatever. but make your space work for you. So whatever space it is that you have, and you maybe don't have a lot of like built-in work closets and stuff like that, but you can get rolling racks, and you can label the rolling racks, and you can have, you know, work coming in, work going out, you know, systems that work for you. So number 2 is to ticket garments. And when I mean ticket garments, you want your main alteration tag, but you also want those little tags at the bottom, you know, different little tags at the bottom that have the same number. They know that they go to the same customer, and each one of those little tags you take off and you put on each pair of pants or a skirt that matches the jacket, different things like that. But you want the people's clothing to be correlated together, you know what I mean? So you want to make sure that you use some type of a numbering system, or some type of a name tag, even if you're just taking and just starting out and you're using just strips of paper and you're writing their name on it, but you put it on every single garment, because that way you can start working in flow with production, right? So if you're doing like 5 pairs of pants, 10 pairs of pants at a time, you know, you're taking all the hemming that needs to be hemmed and you're piling it up, and you're marking it all at the same time, you're sewing it all at the same time, and you're pressing it all at the same time. That makes things move. That helps you to save time, and it gets things out the door. So you want to make sure that you are sewing in production style. And this system of ticketing your garments will help you to be able to get in that type of mindset and workflow system. So number 3 is your workstation. So you want to set up your workstations as stations that work for you. You know, like if you have a sewing machine and you want to set it up, and you know that that's where you sit and you do sleeves. You sit and you do sleeves. And so you have a little table next to you, or you have a little sawhorse next to you, so all the sleeves get bundled there. You sew and take apart all the sleeves at the same time. You know, you're going to be pressing them all stacked up and taking them to the pressing iron at the same time. You know, that's where you're going to do all the sewing for that as well. So you're going to get done pressing them. You're going to come back. You're going to sew the lining in them. You're going to sew on all the buttons there. So, okay, so you don't want to keep getting up and keep getting up. That's what takes too much time. So when you know that there's a machine that you sew the sleeves on, so you want to sit down and you want to make sure that you have the 6-inch ruler, you have the tailor's chalk, so you can mark the sleeves. You have a pin cushion there, so you can use pins in those chalk marks and then press them, and then so you get a nice crisp, finish, you know. You want to make sure that you have all the silk thread to sit there and sew the lining back in. You want to make sure that very conveniently, but without getting out of the chair, that somewhere along the lines there, you have all the button thread that you can go and start sewing on all the buttons. Everything in that station is for that particular job, and you can complete everything without continually getting up and down and moving around. That's where you're wasting too much time. You want to have stations built. So same thing for your hemming. You want to have stations built for your particular task that you're producing there. So number 4 is easy access to supplies. And that was an example of what I was just talking about. Number 4 is easy access to having supplies for each machine that does certain tasks. Have the type of thread that you need to complete that job, and streamline your steps in your work area. So you want to, the less you're running around gathering things, the more time you're going to save. So, and then number 5 is easy and fast payment systems. So if that's people come and they pay online, you give them a link, they pay online before they leave. Or if that is some other type of system, you have a cash register and you ring them through the cash register. That's what I did. And then when I opened up my bridal part, I did online payments as well. And I did a link to my PayPal account, so they would pay through PayPal. And then once the payment went through and I checked my phone, yep, you're paid, you can leave now. And that worked real well too. So it depends on you and your system. Like if you're in an area and you don't want to take cash, but you want to take credit cards, or you want to take, an online, payment instead of taking cash. Maybe it's not safe for you to take cash, or whatever this situation is. You want to be able to get paid before they leave, right? So you can do some of that. So then the last one is just a bonus one, and it's you want to take 10 minutes of your last minutes in your shop to do quality control. So what I would do, last 10 minutes, I would go into my closet where all the finished things were done. So I had all these employees working at different locations, and I would go in there and I would check the work. What's going out with my name on it, right? And check the work and bring it back in if something I saw that wasn't right. They didn't steam off all the chalk marks, or they didn't press the lining on the sleeves real good, or the sides didn't look like they're pressed out. Maybe they were let out sides. They still had the folds in them. You got to press it. You got to make sure that your employees know what you expect, because if they don't know what you expect, and you don't go in there and check garments, and you don't call them out on it, it's hurtful at times, but you have to say it in a way that you are working with your employees. You're not against them. You're not higher than them. You're working with them. They earn you money. You're working with them. I work with my employees. I didn't act any better than them. I didn't act any more superior than them. I didn't have this big ego that I'm the owner and I want that label. No, you have to work. You have to lower yourself to work with your people if you want a successful shop. You can't bark down orders at people. They will leave. So if you find yourself, people are always leaving, you're probably sitting at the top barking down orders, and it won't work. It won't work. So to have an easy, nice environment, with people who want to work for you, they want to work with you, you have to work right alongside of them. Come on, you guys, let's get this stuff done, and also give incentives. Hey, we have a big sale coming up. And we're going to be taking in more alterations than we've taken in. Maybe it was for prom, or maybe it was, one of the places that I work, or two of the places, they sold things out on the floor. So if there were, a sale on pants going on, and we would get stacks at a time of 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, because they had a special buy 10 pair and you get, something free, or whatever their sale was. We were going to get those 10 pairs of pants. And so you have to, if your employees are working really hard for you, then show it on their check. People don't care what you say. They want you to take action and show them that you appreciate them, right? So we'd give a $25 or a $50 bonus. They helped us make way over our budget, Then give a little bit to those people too. They're still struggling. They're still trying to find their way, and they're trying to make a good living for their family. And so it's just always nice to appreciate who you have working for you, who is helping you bring home your bread and butter, right? So hopefully these tips helped you today. I hope they did. And I do want to mention one other thing. I had a potential client anyway, mentioned to me about, how do you manage your work in your shop. Well, I started my shops in 1991. My shop didn't have AI's help and didn't have the internet to help me with everything, so I just used everything just on paper, but there are different tools that you can use out there. There's one app that's called Monday.com. So if you go to this app, Monday.com, I'm just learning about it. I'm just trying to feel it out, but I want to share it with you. So they do offer work management. They offer that you can write, if your workflow or whatever, whoever you have coming in, you can manage all of these different clients, people, services. They do have where you can even have a blog from them. inventory, whatever it is you want to have on a spreadsheet or whatever, this would be really nice. And what's nice about it, you can have 0 to 2 users, and it's a limited portion of the app, but it's free. So 0 to 2 people who are using that for you, that are going to be on that spreadsheet, 2 separate people. You could have 2 people, and that little version of that may be enough for you to write in your workflow, write in your, all of your different clients, write in, what they have in there right now, write in, what work they are having done, different things like that. Whatever it is you want to log. Maybe you want to log the prices for that year, or you want to log how many hymns you're getting and how many dresses you're getting, and kind of separate to see what you're really getting, what's really making you the money. That might be a good way. But they also have a $12 little service fee too, and then they have a $19 one, and I think it goes up. So depending on how much more you want from them, they offer different options. So I'm just putting out there, again, the name was Monday.com, and they do have a $9 a month that's billed annually. So $9 a month may get you to where you get everything that you want. Even the free version, you might be able to use the free version and it's all that you need. But then they do have a $9 a month that they bill annually. And so all of those prices are billed annually. So you have to come up with that, amount. So I just wanted to mention that to you as a little bonus also. Because someone asked me about that, if I was doing that, and I don't really do that. My focus was mainly on production, getting the work in that is easy, that can move through your shop fast, that can bring home a good price, money-wise, that was my focus. So I moved, whatever they brought in, I did the work, yes, but I would focus on things like hemming and waist, simple hemming and waist, and, sleeves, things like that, that you can do in a fast turnaround time, and you can get them in and get them out, and then you are paid faster. And the more you can finish and complete in a day, the more you can take in the next day. My husband used to help me out in my shop, not like really do any of the work, so to say, but in other ways, take things apart for me. That's really a great thing. I would have a person that always took all the things apart for me. So when I would come in, my sleeves were pressed and ready for me to sew. The hems were ready to be sewn. The waist were opened up, ready for me to sew. Just having someone in there. So if you have one part-time person, or you have a person that comes in and helps you, it is such a relief to have somebody that opens up all that stuff. If you can find somebody that opens it up without ripping anything, you want somebody that's really conscious about making holes in things or doing things, you want somebody that really takes good care of other people's clothing. And when you can find somebody like that, that you have them just open up all the work. Open it up. Open up the lining on the jackets. You're ready to go in there and sew them. Open up the sleeves, press them, get them folded. So what we would do is we would fold the jackets. We'd take the two shoulders, put the shoulders together, and then fold it in half. So the bottom of the jacket would come up, the top of the shoulders would go down, and the sleeves would hang down. And then you pile them up, one right after the other, right? And so you have all these sleeves sitting here, and you're going to do all those sleeves at the same time. So you can fit them right there on your machine, and you're ready to take them all apart. You're ready to, put the pins in and press them so they're ready to go back in shape, correctly. And then you do all the sewing, and then you sew in the lining, and then we would get up and press the whole thing, and then sit back down and do and you don't want your iron like way across the room, you want everything that is a short distance for you to save you time, and you're in production, that's what I found worked for me the best. And so yeah, so I hope this video helped you, and I'd love to know in the comments below what you think of this video, what you really liked about this video, if there's anything here that really helped you to see things a little bit differently. You know, talk to me, let me know. That way I know what to bring a video the next time, right? So I need your guys' a little bit of input. And if you're watching my videos, like 95% of you are watching my videos, but you're not subscribing. So please like my video and subscribe. That way I can bring more and more content to you all the time. And if you need a coach to help you in your production, to help you to be visible online, to help you to get more walk-in traffic, and to help you bring home more revenue, let me know. I'd love to coach you. I have a wonderful program that I can walk you through. I talk to you every week, and you know, can help you figure out your shop, get it organized, and get it up to par so you can start making the profits that you deserve. Okay, so thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys all real soon. Show me some love. I would appreciate that, and see you guys a little later. Bye for now.